and welcome back to the Love to Mom podcast. I'm Jerry, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely and beautiful mother, Christy.
Oh, Jerry, you're the best. That was like a really aggressive high that you had there at the opening. It made me giggle a little bit.
They've all been aggressive, I think.
Hi. Oh, that's good.
um, but yeah, as the title of our podcast shows, this week we're going to be talking about Hayao Miyazaki's classic film, Princess Mononoke.
Yeah,
You just watched it.
I
Just
literally
watched it.
finished it 5 minutes ago. Yes.
So I guess we'll start off. What did you think?
What did I think? Okay. So we just had a very brief chat while we were checking our levels before we started. And what did you call it? Baby mode
I
for
did.
the movies that are like not difficult to watch.
Hmm.
You lie.
Oh,
This movie, like the heads popping off the top of bodies and
oh,
arms getting nailed to a tree and worms coming out of eyeballs and
yeah, I forgot about that.
oh, and like all over their body, worms everywhere, lots of blood and guts. And I mean, so I watched this with Jenna, my daughter Jenna, and she's like, it's animated. It's not that big a deal, but it still grosses me out. It's like things oozing from
Yeah,
eyes. And so I think, did you not rewatch it? Have
I
you not
no,
rewatched it?
I rewatched it. I haven't seen it since I originally saw it, which would have been
Okay.
in 2019. So it's been like
Okay.
6 years since I've seen it, and
Hmm.
what I remembered from like the blood stuff, I
Yeah.
remembered just at the very beginning when
Oh,
he's fighting the samurai. And then he shoots one of the guy's heads off, but it's like really far away, so you don't really see it. And then like the arms getting like
pinned to a
arrowed to the
tree.
tree, and I'm like, well, yeah, but that's like it's pretty cartoony. Like it that doesn't feel as extreme. But then when I rewatched it, and then there's that big boar that's like leaking blood, and I'm like, okay, that might have been a mistake. I did not remember that at all.
Not one boar,
Well, yeah,
two boars. Two boars. And
yeah.
the second boar had some sort of green gunk oozing out of its eyes, which grossed me out. I'm like, why do we have to have the green gunk at the end within the eyeballs? It's gross enough without that. Um, so and the first time, so the scene you're talking about where the samurai's head gets popped off,
Mhm.
it was so shocking to me. I wasn't expecting it. So I was like,
Oh.
oh, like that. And then like a second later, the arms, and I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
but um once I started thinking about it, and then there is another place where somebody's head gets shot off with an arrow. But what's funny about it is it's like the heads go up
Yeah.
and then fall off the side. Um, but it just the first two, those that first fight with the samurai took me off guard. And then when it's opening with this, and that truly was the opening, was that giant
Yeah.
boar with the worms.
I didn't
I was
remember
like,
that at all.
I don't know if this is gonna be for me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I remember loving this movie, and I still do. I bumped it up from a 4.5 to a 5 this time
You
around.
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it is. I don't, I don't want to say it's Miyazaki's best because he has made some of my favorite movies ever. But it's up there. It's really really phenomenal. But I did not. I remembered like okay, there was something with like guns, and I remember him shooting the guy's head off,
Hmm.
and I remember the big spirit walking through the forest, and the
Hmm.
little guys, the cute little guys. I
They're
remembered those.
cute. Hmm.
And so I'm like, oh yeah, this would be pretty good. And I think I even said like last week, I'm like, there's some blood in it, but it's not that bad. But I did
Yeah.
not remember all that happened in this movie.
Well,
So
and
I
then,
apologize for that.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I was like, oh my gosh. Then the first time you see San, she's sucking the blood out of a wound, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I cannot. Just cannot. Oh
Ye-
man.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so what I would like to hear from you is what did you see this time that
Mm,
raised your rating from a 4.5 to a 5? Tell me what it is that you love so much about this movie. And I know this is a beloved movie. I am
mm,
probably an outlier in this situation, but I would
mm.
really like to hear from you. What, first of all, had you rated at a 4.5, and then what made you bump it up this time?
Well, I mean, I added it as a 4.5 when I like first created my letterboxd account. So I don't know if I could tell you why, like the specific things that I saw the first time I saw it, because I didn't really remember it, like I said.
Mm,
Or I didn't remember a lot of the details. But this time around, and I think having seen most of Miyazaki's catalog, it feels like a standout to me as being like his most, I don't want to say political, but it's the one where he has like the deepest message for me. And it's a message that I really resonate with. I'm kind of a hippie. And so like this like man versus nurture kind of conflict. And then there's the one figure in the middle that's kind of playing both. And that's one thing that I really, really like about Miyazaki is that like he never like there's conflicts in his movies, but like they're never resolved with violence. There's always some sort of like we need to meet in the middle somewhere. There is this like compromise. There's just like this lasting peace that exists through kindness. And that's something that is present in like all of his movies. And it's something I really, really love.
mhm,
And so in this one, it does get really, really bloody, but there's good and bad things about both sides. Um, where it's like, obviously, the humans are the bad guys, or at least are portrayed as the bad guys, but there's moments where like all the girls in the city absolutely love the leader and like she took all these girls out of brothels and gave them lives and gave them fulfilling jobs and they all seem to really be enjoying their time and it's just like man like there is that light that goodness in this main villain that like you just want to see that redemption and unfortunately like it it might not have come. She basically kills God. Um,
mhm.
but
But at the end, I feel like there is a little bit of redemption. I can't remember what exactly she says at the end, but it kind of makes you feel like, okay, maybe she sees the errors of her ways. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
She wasn't as stuck in her ways at the end as she was at the beginning. So maybe
mhm.
there's a glimmer of hope in that.
There is, and I think, yeah, I don't know. This might be like his most dour movie too.
Mm,
It's weird that there's like these elements of hope and stuff, but like the tone of it almost feels like this conflict is inevitable and it feels like it's going to go on forever. As long
mm,
as humans are going to keep advancing technologically and encroaching on nature, then this fight is just going to end with one of them being wiped out.
mhm,
Um, and so like I think that's why that sacrifice at the end that the great forest spirit does is like so impactful, where it's like he dies, but he gives life and hope for maybe some sort of peace.
mhm.
And I'm like, I really love that. I love that message. Um, and I don't know. I just there's something about Miyazaki movies, and I know that this is the first one you've seen, which maybe
Well, I kind of saw Porco Rosso.
that's true. That's true.
But and I did enjoy listening to that one. Like, I saw bits and pieces of it. It
Mhm.
definitely has a different tone, a
Yes.
very different tone than this one. So maybe I was going into this thinking, "Oh, this is gonna be like," because we had had a conversation about, how he, um how kindness is a theme in
Mhm.
his movies, and so when I hear kindness is a theme in the movie, I'm thinking it's going to be a feel good, um everyone is redeemed in the end,
Uh,
and it's going to be happy with rainbows and kindness everywhere. And that is not what this movie was.
no.
So I think maybe part of it too was that I was walking into it thinking, oh, this is going to be like Ponyo, which I also saw
Oh,
bits and pieces of,
yeah.
or Porco Rosso. But that is not what this is.
No. Yeah, I think I made a fatal blunder in picking
It
this as
doesn't
the first one. Um,
it's not a fatal blunder. It's just it had been a while since you've seen it. And here's the truth of it. And any parent who's out there listening will understand what I'm talking about. You can see a movie. This happened to me all the time when you were growing up.
mhm,
I would see a movie and I'm like, Uncle Buck. I loved Uncle Buck growing up. Me and your dad, we were like, yes, let's show our kids Uncle Buck. We hadn't seen it since we were teens. You turn on Uncle Buck, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of swearing in here.
mhm,
There's a lot of, and then we're watching it with you guys, and it's like, oh, I wasn't watching this movie at that time with that lens.
right.
And so I think that's probably what happened with you too. You didn't have on your mommy as a wimp lens when you watched it the first time.
No. No, I did
So
not.
you wouldn't remember that. It was probably shocking.
Yeah, it was. And, like,
Yeah.
cause I watched it, I don't know, I think I watched it, like, 4 or 5 days ago, and I thought about texting you and being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, it's a little bit more intense than I remembered," but I
Yeah.
also was like, "I don't wanna spoil anything either." So,
Well, not only that, but like even if it's not for me, it still makes for good conversation, right?
that's true, yeah.
Um, we say that in book clubs when I'm with my book club. Like if everybody agrees and everybody's like, yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good. What else
Hard
are
to
we
have
going
it,
to talk
yeah,
about, right?
that's true.
If you have different perspectives, it makes a much more interesting conversation.
Mhm.
So, not that it wasn't that I disliked the message of the movie or anything like that. It was just a little too much visually for me
Mm,
and audibly, to be honest. Those worms,
yeah,
the sound effects they used for those worms was really squishy and I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that is definitely a thing. Uh,
Ooh.
my bad, I guess.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. I mean, if it had been that and not animated, then I'd have been real honked off at you. But
Yeah.
the animation softens it enough that I am okay. But I would be lying if I didn't go "Ooh," like that multiple times.
Yeah, I kinda figured. Um,
Yeah.
but aside from the gore, like,
Yes.
what did you
Aside
think
from
of
the
the
gore.
actual story and stuff?
Um. So, uh, I'm thinking about what I want to say. There were things about it that I really thought were interesting. The commission that he was sent on to say, don't let anger and bitterness overtake you,
Mhm.
basically, is kind of what his mission was to go out and try to bridge a gap without becoming angry and bitter at each time, at each, with anybody he's interacting with.
Yeah.
I think that is really interesting and also very difficult to do.
Yes.
And especially as we're watching the movie and the choices that um, I cannot think of what the leader person's name is of the humans
Oh,
of the
Eboshi.
Iron City. Thank you. Um, man, she was despicable a lot,
Yes.
and he continued to show kindness to her, or at least not. He wasn't wrathful or
Mhm.
like coming after her. And I think you can take that and you can also apply that to, today, living in the world we live in that is very contentious. It is very easy and I struggle with
Mhm.
kindness. No, I won't say that. I'm kind to people's faces. But in my brain, I'm like, "Oh, I could not disagree with you more. You're a bad human being."
Right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I can take that message from the movie and be like, "Okay, so you need to walk through the world with kindness." And and to try to not only do that to the outside, but also to try to do that on the inside. Although sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I think sometimes people cross a line
Sure.
where I don't know that they're necessarily owed that from you. Like you can be kind,
Yeah.
but you can also like really disagree and set boundaries with people if you know that like I really and wholeheartedly do not agree with what you're doing. You are hurting the people I love, and so
Mhm.
therefore I really can't be around you right now, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting thing. Like if I take it in the movie, I'm like, wow, that's really noble and amazing. When I think about it in big picture, it's like, yes, that is how we should work and move through this world. There's also a part of me that's like, I can't really condone things that are detrimental to the human race. I just can't do it.
Sure. Well, yeah, I don't think Miyazaki is making this movie being like, everyone should be best friends with a Nazi, even if you disagree.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think what he's trying to say is that we're all different.
Yeah.
And there are like, if you disagree on something like pretty minor, then like
Mhm.
don't throw away a
Sure.
potential for some sort of relationship there.
Mhm.
Um, and also just go outside. I think that's a big part of the message too.
Yes, and let me say, the nature animation in this movie was gorgeous.
Yeah.
The green, specifically the green in this movie was so bright. I'm like, how do they get the grass and the trees and when they're out on when it's hitting the sun? Not when you're in
Mm,
the woods and it's darker, but like
yeah.
when you're out in those fields and it's hitting the sun and it's like the greenest green. It's like the first spring. I'm a big fan of spring green. Like when the grass first comes up and the trees first get their leaves and it's that like vibrant, vibrant green.
Mm.
As summer goes on, the green gets darker. But man, that fresh green of spring, they captured that in a beautiful way. I loved that. Loved it, loved it.
Yes. Yeah, that's something that like every Ghibli movie has. Whether it's by Miyazaki or not. It's
Mhm.
like I don't know how they do it. They are like some of the most gifted artists and colorists
Mhm.
that I've ever seen.
Yes,
And the fact that like it's all hand drawn is insane.
it is.
Um,
Yeah, the
yeah.
amount of talent is and time and effort and everything that goes into a movie like that is really unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah. There's a reason that it's like 7 year gaps in between every single one of their movies.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes, I think, specifically that green just was popping for me like crazy, and then there were some scenes where the sky was like a really vivid blue that was also really eye-catching, but there was nothing that competed with that green.
Right.
Like, that green was just amazing, and also so I'm sitting here thinking, like, we're watching those scenes from far off where you would think you're in a camera, zoom way back, and you can see, um, our main protagonist, I cannot rem I
Ashitaka.
Thank you. I don't know why I'm having troubles. I even wrote all the names down, but it's on another screen, and I don't want to mess with switching up my screens. So, but anyway, um, they chose to put him in red,
Hmm.
and color theory, red and green are complementary colors. And when you zoom back and you're looking at him from afar, uh, it makes that red really pop. He's easy to spot in that green,
Oh yeah.
even though the green is so bright. That pop of red in there really makes him identifiable
Hmm.
from a distance, which is great when you're looking at a scene like that because you don't want to lose your main character when you're zoomed out like that. You want your eye to be drawn to that person. That's the purpose.
Hmm.
Um, and so I thought, well, that's interesting use of color. I liked that to make
Yeah.
him easy to see. Yeah.
And it's interesting too because red is almost always exclusively used for antagonists, villains.
Mhm.
Like it
Yeah,
is
that's true.
it's a color that is used to signify anger or wrath, which is interesting that it's associated with the character in this movie that is against those things.
True.
But red can also be something like a symbol for passion or
Mhm.
fervor, which I
Or
think
power.
or power, and I think
Mhm.
that's something too. And I think I brought this up last week when Miyazaki designs protagonists. Kindness is their biggest strength. It
Mhm.
is. It's never used as like you are, you know, they're kind to someone and then they get conned and then like they're put at a disadvantage. It's like no, the kindness that they do like brings people together and actually provides more for them than it would if they were like trying to be sneaky and try to get pull things over on people.
Right. I
Um,
think too, um, that that the kindness that was shown, his quality of kindness, while he was um, kind to both sides of that conflict, had he burned a bridge on one side or the
mm,
other, then there couldn't have been reconciliation at the end because he couldn't have had influence on both of those sides had he, like
yeah,
done what I said I would do, which is setting boundaries. Because he was not a boundary setter, um, he was able to maintain relationships with both sides and both sides still respected him.
Yeah.
Like, even though he was, I mean, you would get comments here and there about, well, like, he's working with them and, whatever.
Yeah.
But there was still respect. There was mutual respect, as
Hmm.
far as uh, still accepting him, even though they knew he was also working with the other side as well, or at least
Yeah.
communicating with the other side.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Is that like I feel like the humans, even though they're like, he's working with the spirits, they never like attack him. They're
Mm-mm,
always like, yeah, but he also saved our friend. So like
mhm.
we're gonna cut him some slack.
Right.
Um and I think that really shows too that like it's hard to like, humans are the bad guys. But
Mm,
like not everybody operating in this town is a bad person. In fact, like
right.
far from it. There's only like a couple, I would say, evil people,
Yes.
but those are the people in power, unfortunately, and all the nice
Hmm.
people are doing manual labor.
Right. It's true.
Which I guess is how the world actually works, but um
Yeah.
yeah, it's just nice to like it would have been really easy for like especially like you see this a lot in kids movies where it's like this is the evil town. Everybody is
Mhm.
evil. We need to stop evil town from being evil. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, there's more nuance to it here.
Hmm.
And I mean, this isn't a kids movie, but it is
No.
but it I guess it kind of gets that rap as it's an animated thing. But
Hmm.
this is true of all of their stuff, is that there's like never like, oh, you are evil, you are bad, rotten. There's absolutely nothing redeemable about you. It
Hmm.
feels like there's a through line of like everybody's trying to do what they think is right. And like whether you disagree with it or not, it like nobody's just being comically bad for the sake of it. Nobody's like being the Joker and blowing something up because he likes chaos. It's like
Uh,
no, everyone has legitimate reasons for what they're doing, and like
mhm.
if you take time to understand it, you can kind of be like, okay, I understand. I disagree, but I
Right.
understand.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's key. Like the end of what you said, you can look at someone and be, even the worst person, you could be like, oh, they had a terrible upbringing.
Yeah.
They had an alcoholic father that beat them and they had whatever. And so I understand why you're acting that way. Or I can empathize with that,
Hmm.
but I can't condone your behavior, you know. So it is like empathy. It's being empathetic to someone,
Hmm.
but also holding them responsible for the decisions that they make.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mhm.
I think that like, and I know this isn't a kids movie, but for some reason, I think like all Ghibli movies are kind of like, I think they're all My Neighbor Totoro, which is like
Mm.
explicitly made for like 6-year-olds.
Uh-huh.
Not a bad thing. I just want to
Yeah.
come out and say that because
Sure.
that is a beloved movie, way
I
more
have
so
not
than
seen that
this.
one. I have not seen that one.
We'll probably watch it at some point because you
Okay.
would probably love that.
I want you to watch it first to tell me if there's anything gross. But you said
There's
this is
not.
for kids, right?
Total.
So we're okay.
This is the only movie that has any sort of like blood and guts in it.
Okay. All right. Super.
I think I just picked this one because I wanted to rewatch
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
I needed an
Yeah.
excuse.
Um,
Um,
yeah, I mean, it definitely has some really amazing themes. One of
mhm.
the other things I really wanted to point out that I noticed as I was watching it was the nature sounds.
Mm.
And they were so great. I mean, I don't even know how to describe them. You could hear the birds or like just the sound of trees or the sound of water or whatever. Like the sounds specifically around the forest and nature
Yeah.
were so great. Like and enhanced the movie a lot. And at some points were so great that I was like, oh my goodness, listen to that. Listen to those birds. Like
Hmm.
I recognize that bird call or
Right.
that was really lovely. I think this movie did a beautiful job of just capturing nature in general.
Mhm.
Not that it was over detailed either, because it's like, well, it's not like it's a computer animation where you can see every
Right.
leaf and you can see there were times we could see every blade of grass. Um, but it was like the big picture,
Hmm.
the capturing the essence of nature, not necessarily the detail of nature, and also the sounds, which were amazing. I loved it. I thought that was great. I could very much appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from like Miyazaki's background, which I won't get too much into because like the big points aren't so much they don't so much apply to this movie. Maybe
Hmm.
if we do another one of his, I'll talk about it a little more. But his I think his dad owned a airfield um right after World War II. He was a kid in the 50s. So right as like the American occupation was happening and like, Japanese military operations essentially grinded to a halt,
Hmm.
he was like operating this airfield that used to make planes for the war, but now had to like completely transition to commercial planes. And
Hmm.
Miyazaki grew up around that, and a lot of his movies, honestly, I was kind of shocked that there aren't planes in this, even though it wouldn't have made any sense. They're in
Hmm.
every single one of his movies. And like they're so insanely detailed where you can tell that like thought was put into like
Hmm.
where the specific bolts are because that's how it would
Yes.
really be in a plane. He's like a huge nerd about that.
Hmm.
But because his dad owned that airfield, and they kind of lived out in the country where it was like maybe a small village that had this airfield there that was like making these parts. And that was just like the one thing that the village all kind of did. It was like the one source of work in the town. And so like he spent a lot of time in the countryside, in nature, just like walking around, being around like trees and forests, and that's something that is like so universal. And I think I've seen some stuff from him where it's like this was something that was like supposed to be specific for like Japanese culture,
Hmm.
but it feels so universal because everybody goes outside. Everyone wanders around the woods when they're kids and just explores, and that feeling is universal. And
Hmm.
I think that's something that this movie like really does well is that it shows all of these like little things that you would think of when you're a kid, where you're like, man, I just remember this so vividly. I saw this like little bug on a leaf or something, something so small, but it's for some reason sticks with you. It feels like
Hmm.
it's a movie filled with these little tiny details with nature that it's just like, it's
Hmm.
almost impossible to like appreciate them all because it's just so much. I just
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. I mean, I think yeah, there is a scene, and I can't remember what scene it was, where there's like a fly that's flying around or a bee, some little bug that's flying around over here. And I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that. It's a little bee. Yeah, I really appreciated that. The um nature, just nature. I thought it was
Mhm.
great. I grew up in the country, and moving to the city was a rough transition for me to move back
Mm,
into town because I had 40 acres of land to roam,
right.
and there's the smells and the sounds and all of that. So when you're away from it, you after a while you don't miss it anymore, to be
Mm.
honest. Like you miss it at first and then you get used to being in the city, and it just is what it is. And then you go back out into nature again and it's like, oh my gosh, I remember loving this so much. Why don't I do this more often?
Mhm.
So I like that that's a value.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really nice.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I have anything else. Do you have like stuff that you had prepared or notes or anything?
I literally finished this 5 minutes
Well,
ago.
I know.
No.
Okay.
The only things I had written down was, ooh, gross. Monster is gross.
Yeah.
Liked the nature sounds. And then I was making notes on the character names so I could try to keep them straight.
Mhm.
And so, no, I didn't have anything that I was, because I was trying to watch at the same time.
Sure.
I think it was easier for me to take notes when I was watching Break In because I knew it so well.
Well, yeah.
And I didn't know. And so I was like, I felt like I really, and because it's subtitled,
Sure.
well, we watched subtitle. We did not watch the dubbed. We watched the dubbed version. Oh my goodness. We watched the dubbed version,
Uh-huh.
but we also had subtitles on because sometimes I have troubles hearing.
Uh-huh.
And so then it was like I really had to pay attention because I've never seen this in my life and I'm trying to keep everybody straight in
Oh,
what's happening. So
yeah.
I did very high level notes, but nothing, which is great because now like I'm thinking through this stuff with you. I'm processing it with you. I've not had
Mhm.
much time to think on it. I do wonder, and I don't know if you know this or not, like what not to get like not to get into theology or religion or anything like that, but I am
Okay.
curious. Some of the messages in this movie, um, there's a lot of redemption and there's a lot
Hmm.
of that kind of stuff, which um, you know, can carry over into any faith tradition, right?
Hmm.
And I am curious if he considers himself a spiritual person because some of the themes in this feel very much like, I don't know what his if he's Buddhist or anything, and maybe
Hmm.
not anything at all. But there are for sure, if you want to watch this from that lens, there's a lot that you can see, um, like what is it, the forest, the spirit of
Hmm.
the forest or whatever, like sacrificing himself and then bringing new life. And there's like all of these different sort of feel like could be a spiritual theme of some sort.
Yeah.
If you look at it through that lens, which I mean, it's fine if people don't. I don't, it's neither here nor there. It is just something that as you and I have been talking, I'm
Sure.
like, oh my gosh, yeah, it feels like there's a lot of parallels to deeper philosophical thoughts.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what his story is and if that was intentional or not, or if I'm just reading things into it. I don't really know.
I don't think you're reading into it. I think there is a like level of spirituality throughout all of his movies,
Hmm.
which in some of his movies, like The Wind Rises, that one's like kind of not autobiographical, but it takes place at like it's about an aerospace engineer who's designing
Mm.
airplanes, so it feels kind
Okay.
of like deeply personal. But
Yeah.
that one almost feels like it's a balance between like the
Yeah.
like real world designing these things that have to be so specific and particular, and then enjoying life as it
Yeah.
is, and it is so spontaneous and not particular. Everything's messy.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's kind of a running theme. I think I don't know what his like religion is.
Hmm.
But
Or if any at all. I mean, he may not have any at all, but I
yeah.
just was curious because it does seem like if you
Mhm.
think about it, and you can definitely place a lot of this movie and look at it through that lens.
Right. Yeah, and I don't even know if it's drawing on any specific religion. It just seems to
Hmm.
be like an appreciation for natural forces, less
Mm.
so than
Yeah.
like specifically like this is Christian, this is Buddhist.
Right.
It feels just like
Mhm.
this aspect of life, these kind of like, you know, things that we can't describe or we can't
Mm.
figure out completely. It's just that's the way
Mhm.
it is.
Yeah.
And like learning to respect that instead of trying to change it and make it perfect.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I feel like that's definitely a theme, but
Mhm.
I'm sure he's talked about it, but I
Yeah,
haven't
I'm
seen
just
anything.
curious because it really kind of jumped out at me as we're talking to,
Hmm.
tonight about it. It's like, wow, and that could just be aspects of philosophy as well, you know, not necessarily pulling in religion or spirituality, but I feel like there are things if you're looking at it through that lens, you could definitely pull
Yeah,
from this movie to take as you know, from that vantage point.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I don't know. I'm kind of at this point kind of just considering like it would kind of be fun to do like a Ghibli marathon on this show
Mm. Mhm.
because I know you weren't crazy about this one. I think you would love all of the other ones. Like
Yeah.
if we watched like Spirited Away and My
Yeah.
Neighbor Totoro and Howl's Moving Castle, like all of
Mhm.
those are so great and wonderful and cute. And
Mhm.
they have the thing that you were talking about where it is like everyone gets redeemed at the end. There's this like
Yeah.
really great happy ending, and it's just like
Mhm.
I think that's I think it would be right up your alley. And they're all
Yeah.
as beautiful as Princess Mononoke too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It is refreshing to see. It is refreshing to see hand-drawn animation,
yeah.
because I feel like, when we were first seeing computer animation, everyone was in awe, and it is awe-inspiring. There's no
Yeah.
question that computer animation is gorgeous, but there is something to appreciating the talent that goes into doing something that's animated by hand,
Mhm.
and the style that comes with that is very nostalgic for me
Oh yeah.
to see, like this person was the background painter or this person,
Right.
and it's like, oh, I like this. In fact, you know what it made me think of a little bit was Sleeping Beauty.
Hmm.
Disney's Sleeping Beauty, because the forest scenes when they're in the forest and it's like that blue
Mm.
green kind of color
Sure.
reminded me a lot of the coloring that you would see in Sleeping Beauty in those scenes where they're kind of more in the denser parts of the forest. And so when you see those backgrounds that are more like, I'm just getting a feel for what this background is, I'm
Right.
getting the gist of it because of the color placement or whatever. It made me think of that, like those older Disney movies that were
Right.
animated that way.
Yeah, I mean it's all traditional cell animation, so it's just
Hmm.
yeah, each character movement is just on a transparent sheet, and then they place that over the background over and over and over again.
Hmm.
And I love that they're still doing it. Their last
Yeah.
movie, The Boy and the Heron, came out like 2 years ago, maybe. I
Hmm.
think it was late 2023. And it's still all hand drawn. They did make one 3D animated movie, and everyone hated
Yeah.
it, and then they
Oh,
immediately went back.
what was it? Do you remember?
Earwig and the Angry Witch? I have not seen this one. I don't think
Yeah,
it did very well
I've heard of
anywhere.
it.
Really?
Hmm.
I think it's on Max because they have like all the
Okay.
Ghibli movies.
So there is a Broadway show called Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
That might be it.
That is about it is about a transgender individual who is having an operation and they accidentally left an inch behind.
Oh,
That
okay.
makes
It's not
sense.
about that.
I don't think it is.
No, I think it's
But the titles are incredibly similar. Are you looking it up? Yes, thank you.
okay. It's okay. It's just called Earwig and the Witch.
Okay.
Yeah, I must have got
Okay.
those two twisted
Well, I mean,
because I've probably heard the
Earwig and
Hedwig.
the Witch, Hedwig and the Angry Inch is very
Yeah, I
similar.
probably just got them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That the Earwig and the Witch came out in 2020. Um, yeah,
Okay.
and that one, I mean, it's wildly unpopular. Nobody really likes it. And it's that movie is written and directed by Goro Miyazaki, who's
Okay.
Haoya's son. And I
Uh-huh.
don't think he really wants to be in this business. Like he's made a couple
Oh.
movies, and I
Mhm,
think I don't know if like if his dad was pressuring him or if there was just that
mhm.
pressure to be like to keep it going. But
Sure.
like his movies, you can tell it's just like I don't know if his heart's in it 100%.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I
We're not
mean,
gonna watch that one. I haven't seen it, and I
okay.
don't have any plans to. There's
Well, I also wanna say that I've never seen Hedwig and the Angry Inch. That is someone's synopsis that they gave to me after seeing it. So if I
okay.
said that wrong, I apologize to everyone. That was how it was told to me, and I have not seen it, so I should not speak with any authority on it. But that is my understanding, that is the plot of that musical. And
You-
I think, okay, here we go. We may have to do recollection correction corner next week, but I think that's the one that Neil Patrick Harris won a Tony for.
Okay. Let
I think.
let me
Look
pull
it
it
up.
up. I'm looking it up right now.
So
Well,
we're gonna do recollection correction corner right now. Is
the
what we're gonna do in the moment.
okay. I just searched it and the movie came up, but it's about the musical. The,
Yeah, it was a Broadway musical.
okay, let me see. Um. Geez. All this dead air.
Because I'm also thinking maybe it was Spam-A-Lot now that he won a Tony for. But I do think it was Hedwig. I think it was Hedwig. Are
Let
you
me see.
seeing anything?
Awards and honors.
Yeah.
Tony. Yeah, he won for it.
Ooh, yes, Christy got it right. Christy got it right. Okay, just very briefly read the synopsis and tell me if I was on the right path on that one, if I was
um.
remembering that part right.
Okay.
And
I'm.
everyone who's yelling at your phone right now, I'm proud of you if you already know the answer to this.
Yeah. Let me
But
pull it up because I was
yeah,
on the Wikipedia page and that's gonna be too long.
oh, yeah, you don't
Um.
want a giant synopsis.
Yeah. A German immigrant living in a trailer in Kansas is the victim of a botched sex change operation. Oh,
Okay.
that's pretty much it. The rest goes into like this is a critically acclaimed off-Broadway rock theater hit. And it's like, okay,
Oh,
that's
so
pretty much all for the,
okay, so yes, I think I was on the right track. That's my
yeah.
my understanding of it. Anywho, very different movies, very different movie versus. So they made a movie out of it too, then, huh?
They did in
Is that what you're telling me?
2001.
Was Neil Patrick Harris in it?
He was not. It was John
Oh,
Cameron Mitchell played
I wonder if
Hedwig.
they. I wonder if the movie came first and then they did the Broadway show.
Could be.
Look at me making you do all this research.
Well, the movie is released through Criterion.
Oh,
So it has to be somewhat
it has to be a
famous.
classic,
Yeah, it
right?
has to be a classic. The musical. Oh no, the musical was made in 1998, so it came
Oh,
out
okay.
before.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for looking into that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Did
but
you hear me say recollection, correction? I see. This time I messed it up. But
yeah,
did you hear me say it twice without messing up?
I know. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, but I just messed it up. So now I don't feel so proud.
But what's interesting, sorry to keep talking about this
No.
random musical that isn't related to Princess Mononoke,
Yeah.
but the musical was written by John Cameron Mitchell, who was the writer, director, star of the movie.
Oh, interesting, but
Yeah.
not on the stage.
No, he didn't play him on stage.
Interesting. I wonder why. That's interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a as I remember it, that was a big deal for Neil Patrick Harris. That was kind of like when everyone was like, "Oh, he can sing? He's a,"
Oh,
everybody knew him from TV.
right.
And so then when he won the Tony, then it was like for years after that he was the host of the Tonys.
Right, yeah.
Like kind of where that started was, people were like, "Oh, well who knew that he's like the stage performer." Well, at least that's true for me. And then he's just delightful and has so much charisma.
Yeah.
I just I'm a fan of Neil Patrick Harris. Big fan.
Yeah,
I
seems like a
loved
nice guy.
Doogie Howser. Uh, Doogie Howser MD was one of my favorite shows growing up. He was just so adorable. Anyway, I liked him. I remember in college when Doogie lost his virginity. I don't know. This was a big deal. I don't know if you
Okay.
remember this.
I
Well,
I've never seen
I mean,
this
you weren't
show.
alive,
I wasn't
so no.
alive, yeah.
You've never seen it? Okay.
No, I don't I barely know what this show's about.
Well, he was this little kid who was super brilliant, who became a doctor at like 12,
Oh,
like
I don't like
really,
where this is going.
really young. And but the show was on for a long time, and we all were like, "Oh, Doogie and his girlfriend." And then when I was in college, I think it would have been my freshman or sophomore year in college, they finally had sex, and it had been everyone was waiting, like, when is and he was older, now he wasn't 12, he was
Okay.
older. It wasn't
Okay.
cringy and gross. But I remember, people put whiteboards on their dorm room doors, and I remember walking by somebody's door and it said, "Doogie did it." Like giant bold letters on their door. "Doogie did it." I was like, "Oh gosh, that's so funny." I
And
mean,
you
I
went to a
can't
Christian
imagine.
school.
I did, but it wasn't it it was affiliated, but it was not required. So like
Mm.
some Christian schools you go to, it's like you have to go to chapel 3 days a week. You have to
Oh,
have a
yeah.
chaperone all the time. You have to go to church services on Sunday. None of that was required where I
Mm.
went to school. It was like, yes, we're affiliated. Yes, we have like a little chapel on campus. If you want to go to those things, you can. But there were no requirements other than
Oh,
you had
okay.
to take 2 religion courses, but it didn't even have to be like, Christian courses. The one I went to was called On Death and Dying,
Oh,
and it, examined death and dying through a lot of different spiritual lenses, lots
well,
of different religions and
that
that kind of
sounds
stuff. So
interesting. Yeah.
you had to plan your own funeral, which
Oh.
was like one of the you had to pick the music and you had to yeah,
Oh,
it was a really popular class. People loved that class. And so that was one of my religion classes. And then the other religion class I took, we are really on a tangent right now,
that's fine.
was literature of the Old and New Testament.
Mm.
By the way, the worst grade I got in college.
Yeah, it sounds really boring.
It was boring. I went on a cruise during the middle of it, so I missed a good chunk of the New Testament.
Oh.
And so my projects were not good. And I ended up getting a C in the class, which was my worst college grade.
Wow.
So
Yeah, you
yeah,
should be ashamed. A
I'm,
C?
I'm I feel very much shame. A C. Yeah.
I can't believe you.
I know. Oh my gosh, that was quite a tangent. And it all started with Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Well,
something I think I remembered. In the back corners of my mind, I guess I remembered that thing.
yes, yes. So anyway, yeah. So Doogie Howser, if you ever get a chance to watch an episode or two and you want to see a really cute baby Neil Patrick Harris, I highly recommend it.
Well, I would
It
like
was
to see
actually
that.
a really good show. It really
Okay.
was.
Okay, well maybe I'll have to check it out. I
Yeah.
don't really watch TV, but maybe.
I
I
hear you say that, and then I hear I'm rewatching Breaking Bad. I'm rewatching
I haven't.
Better
Yeah,
Call Saul.
I am watching Better Call Saul, but I don't know if I've watched an episode in 2 weeks.
Mm.
I I really it's like if I'm like building Legos or something, then I'm like, okay, well I'll just watch it while I'm doing that. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I don't have any Legos. So I'm just
Oh,
yeah.
that's a sad day for you.
It is. I'm
Well, then you
broke.
need to do paint by number or something like that.
Yeah,
That would
yeah.
be fun.
I need a cheaper
But
hobby, that's for sure.
you do, and you still need to watch Shrinking. Everyone watch Shrinking. If you haven't watched Shrinking, watch Shrinking. It is so good.
The first
So
season
good.
is great.
Oh man, season 2, even better. Fantastic. Must watch. Okay.
Plus, there's a Sufjan song in season 1. So if that's a selling point for anybody,
Oh, well, we know you are a Sufjan fan.
I'm a
You're a
big
super
Sufjan fan.
fan.
I am. Yeah,
I
he's my
know.
favorite artist ever,
I
probably.
know. I've
Um,
heard a few of his songs, but I don't know that many. Okay, sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead. We are way off topic. Are you going to redirect us? Get us
Well,
back on topic?
I guess I was just gonna say, what's next? What is
What's
next?
next? Oh, well, so I think we're gonna do break into Electric Boogaloo because it feels like a natural progression, and I so very much enjoyed break in last week. Also, I think I because I don't remember it, it'll
Hmm.
be like something that's brand new to me. I think I've only watched it once, and again, these are movies from the mid 80s, so it's been a hot minute.
Yeah,
Break In, I remembered because I had seen it so many times.
sure.
Break In 2, I don't know. I think maybe Break In, we either had the VHS, we probably had the VHS, or we recorded it off of HBO. If it was on HBO,
Oh,
then we bootlegged it by recording it off of the TV. Um, so I watched that one gazillions of times. But Break In 2, I think maybe I only saw once or twice, so I really
hmm.
don't remember much about it. So I feel like we should close that loop
Yeah.
and finish strong with Break Into Electric Boogaloo. Um, as you've said last week, the tone was very different in the first 15 minutes of
It
the second
was.
one. I'm anxious to see what it's about. So,
Yes. Now, I'm pretty familiar with Breakin' 2, even though I haven't seen it.
okay.
One of my favorite movie YouTube channels, Red Letter Media, they did it as a part of their very canon Christmas episode they
Mm,
did
okay.
a couple years ago, where they did all canon movies for
Mm,
their Christmas episode, and Breakin' 2 was in it.
okay.
So I basically know what happens. And
Hmm.
by the way, they loved it. I think it won.
They
Uh,
loved it.
well, I don't know if they loved it, but they all it was a part of their show like best of the worst.
You got
I
my
don't
hopes.
I don't really know if it really qualifies for those movies. They aren't the worst. But it's in like their bad movie series, but they were just watching canon
Well,
movies.
that hurts my heart to say that.
I
It's
don't
not a bad movie. This is a
no, it's
fantastic.
not. No, they liked it. I think it won. I think it won best of the worst.
But that still means it's one of the worst.
No, sometimes they're like, yeah, this movie shouldn't have been on there. Like,
And that's how they felt about it? About
I don't
Breaking
know.
2?
I don't remember. It was a couple
Mm,
years ago.
okay.
But yeah, I know they did
Well,
it. And there's some things that they do in Breaking One where it's like they're like specifically trying to one up themselves from the first one. So I'm excited to see those
oh.
scenes.
Oh, I am very excited. I think I might have to call my sister to come back over and watch it
Yeah.
with me. I think we will enjoy that. That'll be a good time.
Yeah. And
We
it'll keep the theology stuff because there's a lot of Christ imagery in Breaking Two,
there.
I
Really?
guess. I don't know. I'm trying to like vaguely
Hmm.
reference things that and also there's an Inception connection. We'll talk
Oh,
about it
okay.
next week.
Does Jean-Claude Van Damme show up in Break In 2?
That I
And did
don't
you go
know.
back and watch him in Break In 1?
I did not.
Telling you, you have to. You have to do that. In fact, at the end, what we need to do is you need to watch it. We're going to stay on together and then you come on after and tell everyone how amazing it was. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, it'll be a nice little postscript.
You can edit it in there because I really want you to see it. It is the best. And I'm afraid it's going to fall off our radar if you don't go look right now.
Okay, well, we'll go do that and we'll cut to my reaction right
Yeah.
now. All right, we just watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Man, he goes crazy in that. He's
So good.
nuts. Wow. Yeah,
Oh,
the clip of that's on YouTube. If you want to see what we're talking about, go to YouTube. Just search "Breaking Venice Beach," and it was the first thing that came up. And
yeah.
he is wearing a very tight black unitard.
It's like a wrestling singlet, and
Yeah,
it's so funny because at one point, he sees the camera's not on him, like, there's a little chunk of time in the middle there where you don't see him at all,
yeah.
and then at one point you see him, "Oh, camera's over there, I'm gonna walk right over here." He's got his hands up in the air, he's
Yeah,
everybody else is doing the step clap situation, and
yeah,
he's
because
like,
they've been on set for
"Mhm."
12 hours.
Yeah, that was so funny.
Wow,
Oh, yeah, that was good.
that was good.
I know. I was worried we were gonna have to watch the Spanish version because that was the only version I could find of the full movie, but it's
Oh,
nice that they have the clip so you can,
yeah. Thanks,
you
Fandango.
know. What's that?
Thanks, Fandango.
Fandango. It's a good little clip. I'm glad you watched it. I was afraid
Oh,
we'd forget.
I did forget, but you
Did
didn't.
it enhance your feelings about would that increase you by a half a star
No.
on the
It would take more than that to raise it up by
I
half
don't know.
star.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty spectacular and like the evil eye that he gives at the end,
That's
that's like
true.
that's worth a half star in itself, I think, in my own personal opinion.
I do think that I was a little bit too harsh on that movie because I think
I
on
did
Letterboxd I rated it 2 stars.
Oh. Oh, that's devastating. That's not even oh,
Jerry?
2 stars, and I
Yeah,
said your name again.
it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I think I was too harsh because I think like as I was editing the podcast, I'm like, you know, I think I was too mean and I didn't hate the first one. I don't know why I was.
Do you think, um do you do you think it's the cheesy factor because that was the time? You know what I mean?
No, I
Can
wish it
you
was more cheesy.
you wish it was more
Oh
cheesy?
yeah. Yeah, that's why I
Yeah,
love the second one.
right. So the first one was unironic. The first one was
Yeah.
like, "We're trying to capture what this is really like, so you're not gonna get the over the top," but even though it feels over the top because when you look back on it, it does look that way,
Yeah.
um, just because of the fashion and, like, it's so distinctive, of
Yeah.
the time. I think it's definitely worth more than 2 stars. What would I give it? I'm a much easier grader than you are when it comes to giving stars on
Yeah.
movies. I would give it I would give it 4. I think I'd give it 4. If I
Yeah.
was going on my heart alone, I would give it 5. But if I am trying to be remotely objective,
Mm,
just a little bit objective,
sure.
because I still can't be objective. Like
Yeah,
it's too tied to me.
that's fine.
I can't do any less than a 4 because I love it so very, very much. And
Yeah.
we're gonna have a whole bunch of movies coming up that I love so very, very much, which is why you're gonna see a lot of high ratings, because
This is gonna be
sometimes when you're
tough.
nostalgic about something, you can't help it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit worried because I know all of the movies that you have picked up are very personal. Stuff from your
Mhm.
childhood that you're looking forward to revisiting, and I'm not gonna have any of that nostalgia, and I'm
Right?
worried that I'm gonna come in here and be like, "That was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life."
But again, that is totally fine because that makes for good conversation. Disagreement is not always a bad thing.
That's true.
And, I think the thing is you watch it and you know this, your lens changes over time.
Yeah,
You watch it as a kid and you're like, "Gosh, that was just amazing." And then you go back and you're like, "Why did I think that was amazing? That was horrible." But if you loved it enough when you were a kid, it doesn't matter how
right.
horrible it is, you're gonna love it. You're just gonna love it. If it's something you loved, but you weren't, like, totally in love with, but if you're totally in love with it, you're going to love it as an adult.
Absolutely.
And I think there's nothing wrong with having a critical eye to it.
Hmm.
and I will still love it even if you hate it, and so we will
That's
have
fine.
good conversation. So that's fine. I don't care
Yeah.
if you're critical of it. That's fine. You're probably more mirroring what people who listen will feel about it.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
sure. Well, yeah,
Because
yeah.
it'll probably be new to most people. A lot of people my age don't know how to listen to a podcast.
I guess you listen to a lot of podcasts, and you've been listening for a long time.
I know. I am tech savvy.
I
I
don't know
mean,
if I'd go that far.
I am I I am you would be surprised. I am more
Okay.
tech savvy than a lot of people my age
Well,
are.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yes, but I maybe not tech savvy according to younger generations. But for my generation, I'm pretty proficient in things.
Yeah.
And so, like people my age, it's like, oh, I need to go ask my kids, how do I listen to a podcast? Where do I go? What's the website? Oh, it's an app. How do I download an app?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
not everybody, but some people my age. Definitely the next 10 years up from me, but
Yeah.
anyway, all of that to say, probably not a lot of 50, 60, 70-year-olds listening to the podcast. And so you guys would not have the nostalgia factor that
I
I do.
yeah, I think that's fair. That's
So
fair. I'm
it's a
gonna be
little bit,
the audience representative for the
that's
Apple
right.
Dumpling Gang.
Oh, I cannot wait for that one. I've added, I mean, can I just say some of the ones I've added or can I not? Should I not?
I don't care. If you want to keep
Is
it a
that a
surprise, you
spoiler?
can, but no.
No, because I'm not saying what order. I'm just going to tell you some of the ones I added.
Okay.
Can I do
Yeah.
that? Okay.
There's no
Um,
rules.
I added 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton, Lily Tomlin, and Jane Fonda with
Okay.
Kathy Coleman. That was also one of my favorites as a kid, and 100% I'm going to watch this, and there will be things I did not catch.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I'm pretty sure there's some BDSM stuff in there that
Oh.
I, as a kid, would not have caught, but as I think back on it, I'm pretty sure there's some of that in there. Um, I put Oh God on there with George
Oh yeah,
Burns,
with George Burns.
and John Denver. He's in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh,
Oh my gosh. That gave me a real love for John Denver.
John
I
Denver's
added
great.
that last week. Yep, I added that one to the list last week. Those are the only two I can think of right now. But I'm up to like 18 on my list.
Mm,
And not very many of them are post 2000.
that's fine. That's fine.
There's a couple that are, but I don't know. Here's the thing. There's something about having such fond memories of things and wanting to share them with your kids,
Yeah.
you know? And that doesn't mean that they're going to like them, you know? I mean, I remember my mom doing that to me and I was like, "Oh, this stinks. This is horrible." But I think even if you don't love it, you can appreciate and we can have a fun conversation about it,
Oh yeah.
regardless of if it's really terrible, which it might be. Oh, and Rhinestone. There's another Dolly Parton.
Oh,
Rhinestone with Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton.
that is the Drinkenstein song. I know that
Yeah.
one.
You do? You know the
Yeah.
song? Did it make you listen to it? I bet I did.
I you probably made me listen to it, but again, I think Red Letter Media, they didn't cover that movie, but
Yeah.
I think they used it as set dressing for one of their Halloween episodes.
No,
as like scary decoration and rhinestones
it
there.
is the best. I saw that one at the theater.
Oh, nice.
Budweiser, you created a like Sylvester Stallone monster, and they call me Drinkenstein.
Ugh. Yeah, yeah, I've seen
Oh,
that. I've definitely seen that. I don't
just the song. I think I remember making you watch it maybe on YouTube.
probably
Just the song,
probably,
but you
yeah.
haven't seen the whole thing, and it's amazing.
I do like in my mind, Rhinestone and Xanadu are the same movies because I think like
Oh,
in the conversation of like musicals from your childhood, those two are
yeah.
brought up together.
Yes, Grease too.
Oh,
Grease was
Grease,
a
yeah.
huge one for me.
Hmm.
I got my hair permed and my ears pierced because of Olivia Newton-John at the end of Grease. I was 5 years old, and I was like, "Mom, I have my ears pierced, and I have to have a perm in my hair because Olivia Newton-John did." And I loved her so much. So then, because I loved her so much from Grease, well, then my mom gave me a home perm. It was
Oh,
called a Tony perm, and my hair was like a frizzy mess, and she had to cut my hair off because it burned my hair.
oh no.
I'll have to show you a picture sometime. And yeah, but I did get my ears pierced when I was 5, and I kept those, but I But my mom wouldn't let me wear hoop earrings like Olivia Newton-John wears at the end of the movie because she was afraid that a kid would stick their finger in the hoop and pull and rip my ear in half.
Yeah,
So I couldn't
that's.
wear hoops, and that made me sad.
I think that that's fair though.
I know, but I really wanted the hoops so I could look like her.
You
And
were
then we would go
5.
out. I know.
Someone
I
would
was in
have pulled it
kindergarten.
out.
I, I was in kindergarten. We would do Grease plays, and I always got to be Sandy, and the neighbor boy across the street was always Danny. And my other friends would get mad at me because I always made myself Sandy, and people would get mad. How come I never get to be Sandy? I'm like, because it's my basement. I was bossy.
Well, we should do Grease. I haven't
Grease
seen
is
it since
so
I was a
good.
kid.
Oh boy, that's another one. I was listening to the song Grease Lightning the other day. I was like, holy smokes, that is
Oh yeah,
like,
it's very overtly sexual.
I had no idea. Can you imagine a bunch of 5-year-olds in the basement doing Grease Lightning in the basement,
It would
putting
have.
on a show for all the neighbors, charging admission for people to come and
You
watch
were
us sing
charging
Grease Lightning?
admission?
Yes, we sold tickets.
Really?
It was a serious business. I was an entrepreneur.
I guess. Man, I never did that.
Oh man, we were like hardcore, hardcore.
Wow.
Yeah. So Grease, yes, I will add it.
There
Have you
you
ever
go.
seen Grease 2?
No, I've heard terrible things about it.
It's terrible. It's terrible. But do you know who plays the lead? Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh. Oh. That's interesting.
She was so pretty. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with her. She's so pretty when I was a kid. I just thought, but now, I mean, that one's even more raunchy than Grease.
Oh.
It's,
Oh, is it?
it was, yeah. I'm typing on my phone. So
Yep.
yes, that is the dealio. It is, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a song that they sing in their sex ed class called Reproduction.
Oh.
Reproduction.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
That sounds terrible.
It probably is. I don't know. I have no perspective. It's fine.
Okay.
All right, I added it.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Well,
Well, that was a very long riff
that's
on
fine.
many things. But you know what? Here's the thing.
Hmm.
I'm not going to apologize for that because I think it's great to feel loose and free in your conversation to take it where you want to go,
Yeah.
you where it wants to go, and it's good.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm taking a hands-off approach with this podcast.
You are.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun
Oh,
and loose.
oh well, okay, that's good because I'm not a very structure-y person. I never had you kids on a schedule when you were little. I was the worst. I'd be like, who needs a nap? I don't. Oh, people are like, oh, I have to have my baby home at 1 because it's nap time, and I'm like, they can sleep in the car.
I turned out okay. I think
You
it's
turned
fine.
out just fine.
Yeah.
Just fine.
I have the wherewithal for 2 podcasts, so there's
Yeah,
that.
it's amazing.
I
And a
guess so.
full-time job.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
don't know how I do it.
I don't either. You're amazing.
I guess
Has
so.
anyone told you lately that you're amazing?
No. No.
Well, here you go. Your mom is telling you you're amazing.
Well, I appreciate
I'm
that.
very proud of you.
Wow. I'm glad that you told me this on camera and not privately unspurred by any
I tell
conversation.
you privately too, but the world should know that I'm proud of my boy.
Okay. Okay. I'll take it.
Okay.
So yeah, next week, Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo. Very, very excited. It'll
Ugh,
be a blast. I
yes.
don't know if we'll have a lot to say. I don't know what we'll talk about, but
I don't know.
I'm sure it will be entertaining. And I'm
Well,
looking
and we
forward to
already
it.
went over like all of the information about the studio,
Yeah.
and so yeah, there won't be a lot of that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
But it will just be the things that we love.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I'm just gonna have things I love. I'm not gonna have things I hate about it. I'm just gonna love it.
No, I don't think I'm gonna hate anything about it.
I
I
think it's
think
gonna be so good.
I think it's gonna be my favorite movie of all time. I think.
I think it is too. I think it's gonna be a 5 star. I think it's gonna be an elusive 5 star from you.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be 5 stars with the heart.
Oh, with the heart is next level.
Yeah.
That means it's one of your tops of all time.
Yeah. I might even add it to my top 4.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Well, we'll see. We'll see which one you
It's
like better. If you like 1 or 2 better.
oh,
You might like 1 better after you see 1 or after you see 2.
I
Maybe you'll
doubt
be like,
it.
"Oh, 1 is so great. It's gritty."
Yeah, I don't I do like grit and like dark and edgy stuff, but
Mm.
not when it comes to a breakdance movie, I think. I just want to see some funny dancing.
Yeah. Well, you get to see that too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
shoot. All right. Well, that sounds good. Yes, break into next week. Woot woot.
woot,
Very excited.
woot.
Woot
Yes.
woot.
Be very fun. In the meantime, you can check out my other stuff. I do the Boy Time podcast. I talked about something very similar in the last week of this podcast. I talked about serial killers. Um, one of them, I think I've seen my least favorite movie of all time.
Mm,
The worst thing I have ever seen
what
with
was
my
it?
own 2 eyes. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Nope. Never heard of that one.
Good. Don't watch it. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. The most despicable and vile film that I've
Oh,
ever seen.
documentary or film?
Film.
I'm
It
getting a
is
low power, but I'm at 7%, so we're good. Keep going.
okay. We gotta keep going. So if you are, you know, we just
Henry, a portrait of a serial killer, right?
yes, yep.
Okay.
I watched that and Monster. So
Oh boy.
yeah,
With Charlize Theron.
yes,
Boy, she won the Oscar for that, right?
deserved. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's in like all sorts of makeup and stuff. Like you can barely tell it's her.
I mean, she transformed for that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the press tour for that one. Everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, can't believe it's even you. You look so different."
Yeah.
She's
It's
such a
crazy.
beautiful woman. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it is that's a really tough story too.
It sure is. It sure is. And
I can I can read serial killer stuff. I can't watch serial killer stuff, but I
mm,
do enjoy true crime. I do podcasts, I do true crime podcasts, I do
sure.
books. In fact, I thought I wanted to be a criminal psychologist when I went into college,
Mm,
and that was my plan
mm.
because I wanted to work in prisons. But somebody was like, if you ever want to have a family, this may not be the best career for you." So I
Oh,
took a left turn on that. But so I definitely have an interest in the topic, but I just can't
yeah.
watch
Yeah.
it. I would imagine those are pretty rough.
Monster Monster wasn't terrible. Like
Mm,
the actual like killings in it were like mostly off screen or were just like basic squibs. So it
okay,
wasn't like too graphic or anything.
good. That's good.
But the story itself is just heart-wrenching.
Very,
Um,
yes.
and then
Yeah, she had a
Henry,
horrible life too.
yes, yes, she did.
Hmm.
And then Henry, the story itself was hard to watch, and then it also has the most uncomfortable 3 minutes of anything I've ever seen.
Oh, oh, wow.
I think I don't know. I kind of went on the podcast being like, this movie is available on Amazon Prime. Like kind of being like, this shouldn't be available. I'm like against film
Really?
censorship in all forms, but this is like, I don't
Oh,
think people should watch this movie. It is
interesting.
like inherently really, really bad.
Oh, that's not, wow. That has to be real bad.
It
Huh.
ruined my day when I watched it, and like I think my letterbox review for it was like, this film made me a worse person because it really felt like, man, like I'm looking at the world different now than I did before, and not in
Mm.
a good way.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Wow.
So if you want to hear me talk about that,
Yes.
I don't go super into detail, but I do talk about that scene.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are interested, check it out. I try not to get too graphic. I
That's good.
think I do give a content warning at the beginning of the podcast, just being like, we're going to be talking
Okay.
about some heavy stuff, but
Yeah.
I try not to because it's awful.
Well,
So
and I do listen to that podcast, so
yes,
I will be aware that that is coming.
yes, maybe
Got
skip.
it. Okay. I will do that.
Yeah. So if you're interested, if you like Princess Mononoke and you want to hear my thoughts on that, maybe check out the Boy Time podcast.
Oh gosh.
Um, or check out my main channel, Boy Time, that I do with my friend Babby. I
Yes.
think as of this podcast coming out, we just reacted to Ciro's Guard Dog, one of my favorite albums ever.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
and that video is, I don't want to say the video is criminally underseen because I didn't expect
Mm.
it's not a super popular album by
Oh,
any means,
sure. Sure, sure.
but it's an album that's intensely personal to me, so it was
Mm.
kind of hard for me to talk about. But
Yeah.
um, I wanted to bring it to the class. So please
Yeah.
check out Boy Time. We do a lot of fun stuff there. So
Yes,
we
you
just
do.
we just recorded right before this. We recorded a reaction to the new Weekend album.
Oh, yeah. I know
I'm
you've been highly anticipating.
I've been anticipating. I've been a little
No.
worried.
You were such a big fan,
Oh, I still am.
but you didn't like the last album, right?
Oh, I love
Was
that
that
one.
it?
Dawn FM is like my favorite Weekend album.
Okay.
I think
For
I
some
was
reason, I was thinking you weren't excited about something that
well,
you
it's just the lead up to this album was weird. There
oh.
was like yeah, he like released one lead single and then he released the album cover and then he did a song with Playboy Cardi who's kind of
Mm.
falling off. Like it's weird that he made that choice. And then like he announced the track list and it was 22 tracks, an hour and a
Mm.
half, and then the lead single's not there. And I'm like, "Oh, weird." Oh, and then he
What?
changed the album cover last minute too. And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
so this feels weird."
yeah, that
Like it
does feel like a lot of change.
yeah, and he was just
Yeah.
like, "And this is the last album I'm releasing as The Weekend. Okay, bye-bye."
Oh my gosh, okay.
It's like,
Well,
"Whoa,
that's a big news situation.
okay." Yeah. I mean, I think
Dropping
he's going to still be releasing music just as Abel
mhm,
Tesfaye.
okay.
So,
Boy, that's a risky thing to do.
it is.
People know you so much by your stage name.
Oh yeah, and he's like one of the
Enough
biggest
people
artists.
like him, they'll follow him, He's
Yeah.
talented.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we just reacted to that. I don't want to give any no spoilers,
No spoilers. No
but
spoilers. Go
ch-
listen to the show.
yeah, go check it out. It'll probably be out in a week or two. But
Cool.
that's
All
everything
right,
I
I think I'm
do.
down to 3% now. Nope,
Uh-oh.
4. 4%. Did you see me squint because I don't have my cheaters on?
I
I'm at
don't either.
4%.
Uh
Uh,
gotta make sure that my desktop doesn't run out of power.
yeah, no, I'm kidding. Next time I'll make sure I plug in my computer. I was like, I have so much in there. I'll be totally fine, but
Hmm,
it just ate that up. Maybe having the extra things plugged in like zapped its power for me.
maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, that'll do it for this episode.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So say, are we going to do the news?
Go to the library and call your mom.
Go support the library and call your mama. Tell her you love her.
Yeah. There we
Yeah.
go.
Bye, everybody.
We're figuring it out.